I'll be comparing and playtesting all the models that you see here. So obviously this is a very highly requested video ever since I published Yonex's natural feather shuttlecock review and comparison, the Aero Sensor and the Aero Club range. So today we'll be focusing on the plastic nylon shuttles. There'll be 2 episodes in this plastic nylon shuttle series. The second episode will be comparing shuttles from other brands such as Carlton, Forza, Bird and even Wilson. So make sure you subscribe to find out the whole 2 episodes of the plastic shuttle comparison. Today we'll be focusing on Yonex only. So obviously Yonex has multiple models of plastic shuttles available, and today in the UK I've been able to get hold of the 10, 300, 600 and the Ultimate 2000 for comparison. So we're going to start with the Mavis 10, and quickly out of the box, here you can see from the top camera, the shuttle tube doesn't say too much whatsoever. So it tells us this one is a 3 shuttle tube in here, and it literally says nylon shuttlecock, Badminton nylon shuttlecock, so not a lot from there. So with plastic shuttles, there's also similar to natural feather shuttles, that different speeds that they come in. So with Yonex's blue cap, meaning the middle speed, which is apparently good for 12 to 23 degrees air temperature. So perfect for the current season for us, and hence it's a good time for us to try. And so the blue caps is middle, and apparently there are 4 different speeds. There's red, there's blue, there's green, and I think there's a double green as well at some point. So yeah, so today all the shuttles that we'll be comparing will be the middle speed, which is perfect for us. So make sure you try and use the right speeds for the right environment. And so Mavis 10 is a completely nylon shuttle, so that means the cork also is synthetic, so it's also a form of nylon or plastic. There's some form of printing, so let me quickly move that onto the top camera. So the Yonex printing is on the cork, and as you can see, the cork itself 100% is nylon or some form of plastic. So the cork is actually quite stiff. The cork is actually, you know, it feels quite stiff. There's no sticker in the middle, like a usual traditional shuttle does, but the skirt is actually really well formed. I'm sure it must be produced by some form of punch out. So I've spent some time testing these. So here's what I felt like playing with the Mavis 10, and I want you to actually see, I hope it shows it really well on the camera, the dents on the lines, on the strings that we've actually made, in terms of how, I mean, it's not damaged. It's not damaged, but you can see there's marks, bite marks on top of the shuttle here. I'm going to try and show that on this camera as well. Hopefully you can see. So essentially it's actually quite a soft shuttle to play with, but also at the same time quite easy and has a decent nice feel to it. So I'm assuming that people who play with plastic shuttles don't use extremely tight strings, because you would be playing at a high level and generally playing with a feather shuttle, which is crisp and sounds and feel nice. So if you're generally playing with a plastic shuttle, perhaps you'll be playing with a slightly lower tension, and with these, they're actually quite nice if you're hitting with lower tension strings. So now if we move on to the Mavis 300, here you can actually see, again, it just literally says Badminton nylon shuttlecock, obviously by Yonex, and half a dozen this time around, but then this time around it gives us the 3 different conditions of the different speeds of the shuttle that it comes in. So obviously red for fast, blue for medium, green for slow, like I mentioned earlier on. Immediately, the first difference you can actually see would be inside here there is a sticker saying that it's the M300 and it's made in Japan. However, the skirt is slightly different. So in this case, so this one, the skirt is different in comparison to the previous Mavis 10, as in you can see that there's actually a few strands of plastic coming out. It's like it was punched halfway through, so it's slightly different. So if I bring back the Mavis 10, you can actually see that the skirt design is slightly different. There is a cork base in the middle of the shuttle, so I'm assuming that the nylon section of the shuttle is then glued or implanted into the head itself. So here, this thing, it looks a lot similar to a traditional feather shuttle. If I bring one in to compare again, the same AS50 as before. So in some ways it's slightly shorter than a traditional feather shuttle. Also the cork is also slightly shorter in that sense. But if I lay it down like this, you can actually see that the cork is also slightly shorter than the feather shuttle. The first thing George and I noticed about this was it sounded so much better than the Mavis 10 instantly. So again, you can actually see it's slightly dirtier, obviously. As you can see, we had some stencil ink on the shuttle from our strings, but both of them also looked like they had some stencil ink on the cork, but it did not dent or felt like it was dented like the Mavis 10. So the next tube we have here is the 600. And now on this tube here, we do actually have more information again as we go up the model range. So very quickly here, now it tells us again the 3 different speeds that we have for the shuttles. And now this time it actually gives us a temperature range. And so if we quickly take a look at the shuttle here, and once we start looking at it, there is the Mavis 600 sticker on the inside. And again, you can actually see that this guy also has a natural cork, but the skirt design is 100% immediately different. So if you look at the wing rib stem design, so let's bring the Mavis 10 and the 300 back in. You can very quickly see the difference in wing design for all 3 in terms of the skirt. So with the Mavis 10 and 300, with the 10 you can see that it's actually quite similar. It's got this little arrow triangle like you have with your SIM card there, but then this for the 300 is completely rectangle, and the holes are a bit bigger, but it's more dense on the 300. So if we look at the 600s, the 2 600 that we've been playing with, again, you can actually see that there's quite a fair bit of stencil string mark on the shuttle, but there's no dents or there's no real damage on the leather side of the shuttle, so it's just literally cosmetic. So in terms of the flight characteristics, one thing that I noticed straight away, so when you're doing net shots, if your partner does a good tumbling net shot or something and you're trying to kill it, and if you catch the skirt of a feather shuttle, it's not going to do much. So because this is quite soft, as in comparison to a feather, it's actually quite stiff, and so the soft skirt will just literally absorb that and don't do too much for you in terms of kills, or if you, anything during a soft delicate shot. If you catch the skirt first, I'm sure it's just going to compress and just die like this. We now look at the Mavis 2000, and this time it shows us even more information regarding the conditions that you can use to play: fast, medium, slow, and double slow. So in terms of the wing rib design, so the design for the 600 was placed in between each of the big stem. So they were placed as these little chevrons in the middle here, whereas in the 2000, where it says here, it is placed in the center, again in the middle of these, but then in a slightly different design. So you can see that these are now little chevrons, now these are just wonky rectangles, and so very clearly they've done something very different. The skirt is the stiffest of them all, so the skirt for the 200 is the stiffest of them all, but it's still nowhere near an actual feather. And so in terms of play, I've made a note out of here on my notes here. It says it's the slowest Yonex out of all. So in terms of the 4 models, it's the slowest one out of all, although they are certified for the same speed. The skirt, absolutely, the design is different. However, I made a note here, it says speed change is the most consistent. So obviously, as you can see, a feather shuttle is inherently an aerodynamically draggy product. As you can see, if it's flying here, it is just going to pull so much drag here. And that's why when you hit them, because of the alignment of the feather shuttle, they spin so that, like a bullet, it stays very stable. And the same with these plastic shuttles. It's actually very noticeable when you're playing with plastic shuttles. You hit them very hard, or you feel like you can hit them very hard, and then they go, but before it reaches your opponent, it just slows down so much. With the Mavis 2000, it's actually very close in terms of flight characteristics. It doesn't immediately just hit a wall and slow down, it gradually slows down. It's still slowing down like a true proper shuttle would, but then nowhere near as fast as, say, the 10. So I guess that's the technology that's within this wing rib shuttle, but it is the slowest out of them all, and again, super hard to clear. Maybe clearing it just isn't my thing. Very hard to clear. In conclusion, the 300 was my personal favorite because the sound of it is really different, and we can also feel that when we hit the shuttle, we can actually tell that we've done a good shot, or it sounds and feels like we've done a good shot. The flight path and characteristics of it is actually okay. Obviously, it's not similar to a real natural feather shuttle or a good quality one, but it's okay if you're playing with your mates and you don't want to incur a lot of costs, or someone who's an absolute beginner, so it'll be really nice and really good. In terms of ultimate durability, I can't really comment on that, but they generally do last fairly well. Then they do take quite a lot of abuse really well. I believe all 4 models here, the 10, 300, 600 and 2000 will be quite good for whatever usage that you're planning to do on them. But obviously, again, most consistent of them all, pretty decent, best sound and best beginner shuttle, super fast. So in the next episode, we'll be looking at Carlton's, Forza's, Wilson's, Bird, and even the Air Shuttle for comparison on top of these Yonex plastic shuttles to give you guys a good comparison. I will see you in the next one.